expose the fanatical reactionary state of mind behind Nazism. Fanaticism turns into a means of salvation, enthusiasm into epileptic ecstasy. Politics become an opiate for the masses, a proletarian eschatology, and reason veils her face. Soon he was a marked man. When Hitler came to power in 1933, Mann was on a European tour lecturing on Wagner, and within days family and friends were urging him not to return to Munich. He never did. After a brief hiatus in France, he spent the next 5 years in Switzerland and, in 1938, settled in the United States, first in Princeton and then in Los Angeles. In these years, he became a major voice in the émigré intellectual community and argued relentlessly against the appeasement and isolationism of Western democracies. When war finally came, he made pro-democratic propaganda speeches around the United States and delivered regular German-language broadcasts that were transmitted into his former homeland. He received many honors, met with President Roosevelt, and became a U.S. citizen in 1944. In many ways, Reflections proved to be the pivot around which his destiny as a writer turned. Not only did it compel him to engage with the powerful historical forces of the age, it also seemed to unblock him as a novelist. The treatise finished, he turned back to a sketch he had written before the war for a satyr play, a droll conflict between macabre death and bourgeois sense of duty, that he saw as a comic pendant to Death in Venice. 6 years later it appeared as The Magic Mountain, that magnificent comic-tragic millefeuille of a book that seems to be about everything: the nature of time, eros, body and spirit, humanism, death, enlightenment, politics, and snow. If you are tired of The Magic Mountain, you are tired of life. The next decade and a half was spent on his ambitious biblical tetralogy, Joseph and His Brothers, with the last volume appearing in 1943. And to general astonishment, he delivered his last great work, Dr. Faustus, only 4 years later. Yet despite its significance in his life, Reflections is the least read and least loved of Thomas Mann's works. Most today will find the reactionary political views he expressed in it repellent, as Mann himself eventually did. That is why the book's readership has generally been limited to historians interested in the German intellectual climate during the war and the Weimar period, or those who find moral political lessons in Mann's transformation into a supporter of democracy. Such lessons certainly can be drawn. What tends to get lost to view, though, is any sense of what Mann wanted to defend in the book. Yes, he opposed revolution, democracy, liberalism, internationalism, and French Enlightenment, and British unregulated capitalism. Yes, he defended Germany's cause in the war, but in the name of what? Who is the non-political man he thought needed defending, and why? For all that has been written about Reflections as a historical and biographical document, it remains an undiscovered book, and a timely one. For buried within it is a serious argument about art's relation to politics. Mann wrote at a time, like our own, when artists were under great pressure to declare their political allegiances and shape their work accordingly. He would always resist that pressure and encourage others to as well. But it took the experience of 2 world wars for him finally to recognize just how large a stake the artist has in healthy politics. That is the lesson he would eventually draw from this wild and petulant apologia pro vita sua. The concept German is an abyss. Reflections. Thomas Mann was born in the Hanseatic port of Lübeck in 1875, shortly after the unification of Germany and the founding of the Reich. His respectable mercantile family, much like the one described in Buddenbrooks, was on the decline, whether due to a lack of vitality or lack of skill or just bad luck. His father died suddenly in 1891, leaving a will stipulating that the firm be sold, since the boys had shown little aptitude for business. Thomas's brother Heinrich, who was 4 years older, then left home and became a literary nomad, living in different cities and countries for short periods while writing biting left-wing satires of Wilhelmina society and politics. Thomas had his own